It's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's moving. It's alive. Oh, it's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive. Oh, in the name of God. Now I know what it feels like to be God. Oh.
Hello, handsome.
My name is Amy Cassandra Martinez, and welcome to episode 6 of Take Zero, the show where we take a peek behind the scenes of the movies that were never made. Now, I can't tell you how many times I've heard of amazing horror films coming down the pike that, sadly, never make it to fruition. This week, we're going to be talking about one of the most mysterious films so far, David Cronenberg's Frankenstein. Frankenstein, or the modern Prometheus, was written by author Mary Shelley during a trip to the region of Geneva in Switzerland. Now, during the trip, Shelley and her traveling companions, noted poets Percy Shelley and Lord Byron, decided to have a competition to see who could write the scariest story. After dreaming of a scientist who creates life and becomes horrified of his creation, Shelley wrote her classic tale, and boy, is it terrifying. While Shelley's book was first published in January 1818, Frankenstein's first on-screen appearance would not come until almost a century later when Edison Studios made a silent film version in 1910. And it wasn't until Universal Studios' 1931 film, however, when Frankenstein would take the world by storm. Director James Whale crafted a truly ghoulish retelling of Shelley's work, and actor Boris Karloff's garish makeup is the stuff of nightmares. Ooh, scary stuff. Since then, the Frankenstein franchise has spawned countless sequels and a myriad of adaptations, to varying degrees of success. Frankenstein has squared off against the Wolfman, rubbed elbows with comedy duo Abbott and Costello, and even had a brief stint as a giant monster fighter. That's right. Japan's Toho Studios, the creators of a certain giant atomic lizard called Godzilla, they made a pair of kaiju movies featuring Frankenstein's monster as a Nazi experiment that must save a village from a giant Japanese monster. But one of the versions of the creature not often talked about is the one almost done by the horror icon himself, David Cronenberg.
Boy, Morty, I really Cronenberged the world up, didn't I? We got a whole planet of Cronenbergs walking around down there, Morty.
Written and directed by Cronenberg, based on Mary Shelley's classic novel, this version of Frankenstein would have been unlike any that has ever come before it, and probably unlike anything we are likely to see again. Given that most of David Cronenberg's body of work within the genre, from exploring body horror from every possible angle to his focus on science and technology and its relation to the body, it's not remotely surprising that he, at one point, considered directing an adaptation of Frankenstein. It's Mary's book that set forth most of the ideas Cronenberg would wind up examining in his films. Most of what is known about this particular adaptation comes from an ad taken out in Variety. An ad which was taken out before Cronenberg had even written a single word of the script. Interestingly, this is basically the same inception as Sean Cunningham's Friday the 13th, so it's not entirely unheard of. Frankenstein and David Cronenberg are a match made in heaven. The two seem tailor-made for each other. The classic story represents everything that Cronenberg was interested in as a filmmaker during the 1980s, which is when the film would have happened, had it happened at all. Perhaps some of the hesitation came from the fact that Cronenberg had just come off of a big-budget 1980s reimagining of a classic horror tale with The Fly. It's possible he didn't want to leap directly into another. Cronenberg seemed to be enthusiastic about the project, however, taking out the ad himself. I can only imagine that the story would have taken a similar approach to The Fly, in that it would be a modern adaptation infused with the science of the time, or at least something closer to it. David Cronenberg and producer Pierre David, who were meant to team up on Frankenstein, had previously worked together on The Brood, and I could see Cronenberg's version of Frankenstein taking several cues from that as well. It's a tale of broken, strained relationships and ultimately a story about taking responsibility for your offspring, even if they are mutants. These themes are all tied directly to the center of Frankenstein. While this version never seemed to make it very far into development, there is one rare snippet from the project in the collection Cronenberg on Cronenberg. In that, the director says, quote, "It would be more of a rethinking than a remake. For one thing, I tried to retain Shelley's original concept of the creature being an intelligent, sensitive man, not just a beast." Yes, that's what it should be. Sorry, my inner angry horror nerd came out for a second, I'm so sorry. It's an enticing comment, but there seems to be no other official word from the director of what we could have expected beyond that. Still, we can't help but wonder what might have been and who may have played this, quote, sensitive man had the film ultimately been made. After all, the main difference between Whale's original Frankenstein that took the story mainstream and the one Cronenberg seemed to have wanted to make is the monster. Whale's movie takes some liberties with Shelley's novel, one of the major departures being that Frankenstein's monster doesn't speak. More movie monster than eloquent victim, the creature is still one of the most iconic and cinematic characters in movie history. We'll always have plenty of room to speculate and imagine what a Cronenberg version of Frankenstein would have been like. Only one thing is certain, it would have been to die for. Thanks so much for watching, guys. It's nice to see you again. Yeah, you. Make sure to comment down below letting us know what movie you'd like us to cover next. Subscribe, of course, right there. Just, you gotta hit that button and give this video a thumbs up so we continue making more. Until next time, I'm your host, Amy Cassandra Martinez, and I hope you guys have a very spooky rest of your day.